So I thought I would do a video on how to stitch out a split design such as this one here on a Brother SC600 or 625, and you have to do it in a few steps because our machine doesn't allow you to merge files in, on the machine screen, so you do them one at a time. So this was a design that I'm not sure where I got it, but it was actually too big for our 4x4 hoop. So, and it didn't have this bar here. I added that in. I resized it in my Embird embroidery software, but when you resize a stitch file, of course, they don't look as good. They get distorted because they're not vector files proprietary to whatever digitizing software you're using. So when I resized this stitch file, everything got distorted. So I redid, go to Embird and show you real quick. Well, I'll just show you from here. I'll just make it bigger. Oh, I have it as big as it goes. I redid this satin here around, and also this satin here. Whoops. Also this one here. And I also redid this little emblem. So I left these the same and these the same. They didn't do bad when I resized it. I resized it from 100% down to like 60% just so it could fit in our hoop. And you'll see, now you may not see pictures of designs unless the person you bought them from sent you a JPEG along with the file. The reason why I can see my PES file here is because Embird has a little add-on program that allows you to see your stitch files and your vector files. This was the vector file where I redid those parts I told you about. But anyway, so that's why I can see it. But and then it tells me over here, normally when I right click I get an Embird screen, but I have Embrilliance up on my computer, and I think Embrilliance is taking over. I have to fix that, but at any rate, you'll see I resized the design here to a height of 3.72 and a width of 3.5. And the reason why I stayed at 3.72 at the most is because I'm going to put a rectangular basting stitch around it. And of course our hoop is only 3.94 max. So at any rate, so if you have a design that you bought and it's a good enough size for you to just use as is, and it's one of these split designs, I'll show you my whole entire process from beginning to end. So here's the design. I'm in Windows Explorer, File Explorer. I grew up a lot older than most of you. So anyway, so I select the design. I look for my USB drive that I use for my Brother machine, and these are all the folders I created. I have a folder called Split Designs PES. I just made it. And I'll just take this and I'll just drag it over there. You can either drag it over or you can click on it, go to your Home tab, and then copy to. Probably want to copy to, not move to, because you want to keep it in your C drive or what have you. So, but I'll hold my right mouse button and I'll slide it over and let go, and I'll say copy here with my left mouse button. It's gonna, I think I already put it in there. Okay, no, let's see. Okay, so there it is. It's on my H drive. So now I'll take my H drive out and put it in my machine. So here we are at the machine, and I'm going to go ahead and insert my USB. I already hooped my fabric, and I hooped it crookedly on purpose. And you might have seen some of my other videos. I use this system to hoop. I use one of these Get Squared rulers, June Taylor, and then I use a square that fits perfectly in the center. So if you want to check out a couple of my other brother videos, you'll see. I know some of them are kind of long though, but you basically put this down, decide where you want your center. You could have a template, a paper template down, and then you just stick this in to draw your crosshair wherever you want it. Usually you find the horizontal center first, so, and then like I wanted mine to be 2 inches down from the edge. So I put this on the edge, and 2 inches down from there would have brought me to the 4, which it's really 2 1/4, but that's okay. And then my design is about, I think it was, how tall was it? Maybe 3 1/2 tall, I'm not sure. But half of 3 1/2 then is 1 3/4. So, so if I wanted my design not to go any farther than the 2 inches, brought me to the 4, I go 1 3/4 from that 4. There's 1 and there's 3/4, and then I would stick this in there and draw a horizontal line. I used a friction pen on this one, but of course you really shouldn't use them unless you're on the back of the fabric or in a seam allowance, but use a water soluble. And then once that's drawn, this is always your center. For this ruler, it's at 3. So you don't have to flip this or anything. You just draw your horizontal and then do that. So I drew my crosshair, but I hooped it crookedly. So I'll show you my process real quick because I know there's videos on hooping crookedly as well. The first thing you want to do is pull up a crosshair. So you don't even want to pull up your design. Now there are crosshairs in the Brother SC625 Facebook group that I uploaded, and there might also be some basting rectangles or squares in there as well. And I use both. So the crosshair is to check for rotation. The basting square is to secure your fabric in your hoop. And you'll notice I have shelf liner because these hoops are, the plastic flexes too much when you hoop it, and so it does make hooping very difficult. And so I've asked Brother to make their hoops a little stronger, the plastic, especially the inner hoop, because that's the one you don't want it to flex, but we'll see. At any rate, first thing you want to do is bring up a crosshair. So I have crosshairs saved on my USB stick. So we'll go into the USB, and might be under my brother folder. Center and based. Oh, I have them both on here. Let me go back because you might not have them all as one. Whoops. Brother. So I'm going to go down to my next folders by using this arrow. Yeah, I have a folder just for center tools and one for just base tools. So first we'll bring in the crosshair. So that's under center tools in my folder. And here's a crosshair here. And we'll set. And the first thing you want to do is check to see if your crosshair is in the center of your hoop. Now the machine will always park, you know, it'll always be right in the center of the hoop. And if I dial my needle down, I don't know if you can tell, if I maybe come, I hate to move this tripod, but you'll see my needle has to be moved to the right and it has to be moved down. So that's the first thing you do, is check for center. We'll check for rotation in a minute. So to move it, if you want to hear the carriage move, you don't want to stay in this screen that says edit end. You want to actually hit that button, edit end. Oh, the needle is down, which is great that they warn you. So I just dialed it away from me. And yes, you can do that because it didn't go in the fabric. So we'll edit end. And when you're on this screen, the screen that says you can go to embroidery next, this is the screen where you'll hear the carriage move. So I'm going to move the needle. The carriage is going to move, but these arrows will actually make it seem like you're moving the needle. So I was quite a bit off. This goes by 1/2 mil, you'll see up here. So I'll go in a horizontal or X direction. Okay, it went 1/2 inch. I mean 1/2 mil. 1 mil, you'll see up here. 1.5, 2. I'm thinking 2 mils maybe I was at. And I'll go down. I'll just go down 2. And then I'll dial my needle down. Okay, so you can see that I still have to come to the right another mil. So let me dial it back up because it's going to yell at me. So, and you know, I'm going to come down 1/2 mil because I think I needed to. So now I'll dial it down. Actually, maybe I didn't need to go to the right. So I'll go back. So all in all, so let's just check it again. I don't know. I think I will. Oh, I'm so OCD. Aren't we all embroiderers OCD? Okay, I'll just go to the right again. I'm just going to leave it. I know it's centered here. Okay, so it's in the center, but that doesn't mean that it's rotated correctly. I know for a fact that I hooped it wrong, so it's definitely needs to be rotated. So we'll dial it back up. We know we're in the center. Let's check for rotation. And the way to do that then is to actually go into embroidery and follow the crosshair that's on the screen, that's on the USB, and see how much we have to rotate the design so that, you know, it stitches in the correct rotation. So we have to go into embroidery, and you'll see I only have one object here, and it says it's 0/1. That's because we haven't gone into it yet, but you'll hit the forward, reverse forward button here, and we're just going to follow that crosshair by 10 stitches at a time. So that goes to the far end. Let's see. Oh, I'll go back one. Okay, so now I'm at the far end of my crosshair, but you know what? Oh yeah, I did draw my line that far. So I'll dial my needle down. And as you can see, my needle, I don't know if you can see that, but my needle is down too far. So think of rotation as when you rotate, think of it as like a circle. So that needle has to be rotated to the left or counterclockwise to get up to my line. It's down too far. So it has to come up. So, but the only problem is when you rotate on this machine, the carriage doesn't rotate, the design rotates. Carriages are only, you know, two-dimensional, either horizontal or vertical. So if you're going to go by degrees, you're stuck with rotating the design on the screen. But still think of it that you're actually taking the needle and rotating the needle. I know that's confusing. So to rotate it, I would say we're off maybe 2 degrees, 3 degrees. I'll just guess and then we'll come back and check. So we have to get out of this screen and we'll hit OK. And we still have to get out of this, but there's nothing to touch on here, so you use your back button here. The needle's down. Use your back button. And when you're on this screen again, the one that says embroidery, that's where you want to click rotate. And you could see it says 0 degrees, and remember, think of it like that's 0 degrees. My finger is like the center of the circle, and we're going to rotate. So to the left. And remember, a circle starts at 0. It comes all the way around 360 degrees. Oops. It comes all the way around 360 degrees. So 0 and 360 are really in the same position. So when I rotate 1 degree to the left, it's gonna act like it went from 360 to 359. So watch. So see, now it says 359. It was in this position, but now it's in this position. And what I find interesting about a lot of these programs is that you can see their rotational tool is going, their positional tool is starting at a point here and it's going around. So when I showed you here's 0 and I went like this to 360, well, that's because I have a degree in math. And in trigonometry, you always start here and positively you go like this direction. You know, this is a positive 90 degrees from 0. Well, these embroidery softwares start here and go this way. That was so hard for me to change my way of thinking. So really, they started here, and a real circle would have been 360, but we went 1 degree to the left to 359. So I'll go 1 more degree. It'll say 358. And I'm going to go 3 degrees just because I'm getting used to this now. And we'll check it. So we rotated it 3 degrees. We'll say okay. because we have to get out of this. And we have to go into embroidery because we have to follow our crosshair now. You can see it's been rotated. And we have to click this reverse forward button. And we want to go and follow our crosshair. So we're going to hit +10. And I'll just dial it down and see if I'm on the line now. And I dialed it down. And it does look like I'm right on the line. Let me see. Yes, I am. But you should check your entire crosshair. So let's go 10 more degrees and watch it follow. Hope you can see. Oh, my needle's down. Okay, go 10 more degrees. Okay, 10 more. And then dial that down. And I'm still on. So if you're on one of the lines, good. You're probably fine vertically, but it's always good to check. So I'll go 10 more. And I'm pretty much on there. So now I'll go 10 more to go down here. I mean, I'm slightly to the right of this arrow. That would tell me that my needle is, too far to the left. So instead of 3 degrees, I could have gone the other way. I'll do it like this. So this needle could rotate back to the right 1 degree. I could do that, and I guess I will. So I'll hit OK. And to get out of here, I'll hit my back button. I'll go into rotate. And I'll go back to 358. And, this is splitting hairs now, but it's okay. And I'll say okay. I'll go to embroidery. Click this button again. I'll go 10. I'll dial down. I'm still on. I'll go 10 more. Still on there. Oops. Okay, my needle must have, okay. I'm pretty good. Okay, so I'm happy with that, but here's the thing. You want to click OK. You don't want to X out of this yet. I'll go back. So here I am at my home screen. I know I rotated the design 358 degrees. I only took 2 degrees off of it, let's put it that way. So you want to take a piece of paper and pencil, and you want to mark down, you're at 358 degrees. But I also moved it, if you recall before that, I moved it, and shows me up here, in a Y direction or vertically, I moved it a negative 2.5, so put that down, and a positive 3.0, plus 3.0. And all that means is, the negative means I moved it 2.5 mils to the left. I'm sorry, this is vertically. I moved it 2.5 mils down in a negative direction, because remember, in algebra or whatever, these are your negatives down here. -1, +1 is up there. So in a negative direction, I moved the needle down. And then in a positive direction, these are your positives. These are your positives. You know, there's 3. These are your negatives. But the needle was like over here, and I moved it, well, I moved it 3. So according to this diagram, sorry, the needle would have been, let's see, 2.5. There's 2, there's 3. So the needle was at 2.5 and it was at -3. Oops, keep messing up. Trying to hurry. Okay, so that's where the needle was, and I moved it 2.5 down to get me to this 0 axis, and then I moved it 3 to the right to get me right on 0. So that's what we want to write down. Because when we X out of here, everything's going to go back to 0. When we pull up our design or our basting box or anything, we have to put these numbers in again. So I wrote it down. I'm going to X out, back, 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 cancel, okay. And now I'm going to pull up my basting box and I'm going to stitch it. But I have to put those numbers in. So I'm going to use my arrows, base tools. I have it set to see the pictures. That's 80 by 80. This one is 99. I'll use this one. It's the biggest one. So, and then I'll hit set. There's my, oh, you know what though? Because I hooped so crookedly, that basting box, that's okay. I don't have to rotate the basting box. Silly me. I just have to rotate the design. This is just to keep it secure in the hoop. So don't even worry about the basting box. So I'm just going to go ahead and stitch the basting box. So I'll just put my needle down, edit end. And I hope I have bobbin thread because I didn't check. And of course you don't have to hold anything with this machine. It's so nice. Unless you're quilting and you want to bury your threads. And we'll click embroidery. And we'll just start. Press our start button. Now, because this is, my design is smaller, so my design's not going to hit anything. Even if it does, these are basting stitches. So, okay, so that's done. So now I'll back out of this, and now I'll pull up the design. I'll back out, cancel, okay. Now I'll go into the USB again, and now I'll pull up my design, and now I'll put these numbers in. Sorry, I wasn't thinking. I normally do everything on my big machine, so, and it's kind of nice to have all these tools. I just wish they did have a built-in basting box and a built-in crosshair, but, so I went to my folder. It's in split designs. There it is there. Set. And hopefully I can rotate it enough and move it enough that it's not going to hit the boundaries of the hoop, you know, because I purposely hooped it so crookedly. But we'll see. If not, I'm going to be editing this video. So, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to edit end, because we're not going to do anything on this screen, because this screen, all it's going to do is change what's on the screen. We need to first move the carriage these coordinates. So we'll edit end, and we're going to go 2.5 negative, so that's to the left. These are vertical. That's the other thing. In math, coordinates are always written with the horizontal number first. So this number here would have been, it would have been a -3, comma, +2.5. The X, or the horizontal, is always written first. Well, on this machine, the Y is written first. So I always forget that. So we're going to go down 2.5. So don't look at this. So we're going to go down 1, and look up here, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it goes a half a mil. So we're -2.5, and then we're going to go +3 horizontally. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. +3. And you can see we're in the center of our crosshair again, which is great, you know. So we did that. Now we have to just rotate the design the 358 degrees. So we're still on this screen. We already did all the hard work with the crosshair. We're on the screen that says embroidery. Just click the rotate button. We're rotating to the left so that this will say 358. Shoot, it's not going to let us. You'll notice what happened is it didn't go to 358, it went to 180. And basically what they're telling you is, hey lady, you hooped so crookedly that I can't even rotate this design 1 degree because I'll hit the side. I can flip the design 180 degrees, but that's all I can do. So basically I'm screwed. I have to go, because my design is so big, I have to go and rehoop this. Now, can I shrink the design? Yeah, but you're shrinking a stitch file. And when you shrink a stitch file, you could have a lot of distortion. And I spent so much time making this so pretty, and, you know, I redid this part and this part, and I put these in. So those parts are vector files that are perfect. And I already resized these. So what do I want to do? Do I want to rehoop, or do I want to shrink it? I'll just rehoop it, and I'll try to get it better this time. I don't know. I mean, for the purposes of this video, I should probably just show you how to resize it. I'll just do that. I'll see if maybe I can just do it by 5%. Okay, so I'll just say okay, or I'll just reset the rotation to 0, and then I'll say okay. But now I have to go back to the resize button. So I'm in the screen that says embroidery down here. That doesn't mean we're in the embroidery screen. That just means that if you click this, we go back to the embroidery screen. But let's go back. Let's go to the size. And we're going to shrink it. So it's this button here. And did it already shrink? I wasn't looking. I wasn't paying attention. I think it did. That's right. This program doesn't do it by percentage. So, okay, it went down. I'm going to just try it. It went down by 2 mils on that one. I'm going to just click OK. And I'm going to go click End Edit to get back to that screen that says Embroidery. You can see that everything got reset up here, but let me check. Let me dial down. I'm still in the center, which is interesting that it kept, I'm still in the center of my crosshair. So it kept everything when I moved the carriage, which I haven't noticed that yet because I never really hooped this crookedly. So you want to just check that just to make sure. So, but we still want to rotate. We still need to rotate it just because it's in the center. We still have to do the 358. So we're on this screen. We'll click rotate. We'll see if it'll just go 1 degree. And it did. So we have 1 more degree to go. And it took it. So I don't think I changed it by that much. So I wonder if I could go 1 more degree. 57. Okay. 57 it took, so 3 degrees it took, but look, when I went 1 more degree, it completely flipped at 90 degrees. It came to 272. So I'll go back to. So it took the 358. So we're just going to stick with that. I think that's fine. I could go back and check to see if I made it too small. Maybe I could have just hit the resize button 1 time instead of twice. But I kind of don't want to waste your time doing that. And I don't think it is going to help me just because I'm going 2 degrees. And when I went to 357, I was okay, but 356, it wouldn't take it. So I'm just going to assume that we're good. So I'll click OK. And, I'm still in the center and we're ready to stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to embroidery. Needle is down. Okay. So, oh, darn it. My first color is the dark one and I have the light one in. So I have to rethread this. So don't watch me. You're not supposed to lift your presser. You're not supposed to pull it out this way because it can get threads stuck. You're supposed to cut it and waste all that thread. But since I don't have much of this left and it's a Roby Anderson, which is expensive, I did it the wrong way. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the dark color. I haven't used this machine in a long time. I hope I'm doing it right. I think I am. Yep, I don't think my presser foot was not up. This is a Roby Anderson thread as well, which I don't want to waste it. That's just for winding the bobbin, pretty sure. I basically bought this machine so that I could have something portable. So, and I'm going to put the needle bar down so I don't have to hold the tension to do this part. So I don't use it that much, but I do like it a lot. Okay. So we're all set. We're threaded. I hope I threaded it right. And we'll click the start button. Can't see. There we go. Cut my thread. I could have cut that thread shorter to start, but so there it goes. And I didn't edit these that you're seeing now, and they look pretty good. Resized this design twice, once in embered and once on the machine, so we'll see. I'm sure it'll be fine. And I'm using cutaway, 2.5 ounce cutaway. So I'll come back for the color change. So I just looked at the original size of the design on my embroidery software, and it was 394. I'm sorry, it was 94.4 millimeters in height. So when I clicked that resize button here on the machine, the first time I clicked it, it went from 394 in height down to 392, and then I clicked it again and it went to 390 in height. I keep saying 390. I meant it went from 94, was the original. I clicked the resize button, it went to 92. I clicked it again and it went to 90. These are mils. So I just wanted to let you know that. So the very first time you click one of those resize buttons, it changes it right away. That's what I wasn't sure about. So, and you can see this design is stitching perfectly in the center. The point here is perfectly on this vertical. So it looks pretty good. Looks pretty darn good. Okay, and so now it'll do this. And then we'll get ready to do our name. And remember, we still have to use these to when we bring up our name. Now you can just type your name in from here, but I don't like their satin lettering because it doesn't have underlay stitches on it. So I actually digitized something that says I love you. It's nobody's name. And I'll bring that in from my USB. So if you can purchase font that is, you know, already digitized, meaning they're stitch files, but they come in small, medium, and large, then you can use that. Or you can use Embrilliance Express, and they have a free font there that you can resize to any size. It's just a blocked font, and I'll show you how that works. Now, you can buy fonts that are vector file fonts from Embrilliance, but they only sell them in sets, and one set is $70. So, or you can buy other people's stitch files. They're called BX fonts, but again, they're stitch files, so you have to buy them in small, medium, and large. If you buy the $70 package from Embrilliance, you can resize them to any size you want, which is how the font is that I'm going to show you in a minute. So now that this is stitched, you want to go ahead and measure how much room you have so you know how big to make that font. So this area here, it's about, well, let's see. It looks like if I go a ½ inch on the font, a ½ inch tall, I'll be okay. And this way, let's see. You're kind of limited. Let's see. So this is about 2½ inches wide, but I believe with your font, you know, you can go farther. You don't have to stay within these lines. You can give it an artistic, you know, flair, whatever. So the design itself is like 3½ inches. So obviously you don't want to go bigger than that, and the hoop is only 4 inches. So anywhere between 2½ and 3½ would be fine for the width, and then the height is a ½ inch will fit in here. So let's go to Embrilliance, and I'll show you how to do that. So when you first open up Embrilliance Express, that's the free version of their software, you'll get this window, and you just say OK. And you'll go to the A here for font, create letters, and all of your lettering will be here. Now the block that you see, this is the Embrilliance font that you can resize any size. It's a vector-based font, and that's what you want in any of your softwares. You don't want stitch file fonts, because if I click on the drop down arrow here, you can see, yes, I have other fonts listed, but either I got them for free or they were purchased, and they're all stitch file fonts. They're BX format stitch file fonts. Just like the brother, their stitch file format is PES, and Genomi's stitch file format is Jeff, JEF, or Jeff Plus. Well, Embrilliance has a stitch file format called BX, but you don't really want to resize stitch files because of the distortion. So you want to use their vector fonts, which this is the free one that comes with Embrilliance Express. They just call it Block. And you'll see, if you look at the size up here, I can grab one of the corner arrows and you see the size changing. I can make it almost any size. And Yes, it auto regenerates for you, but it's not a stitch file, it's a vector file. And I do believe they say you should only go, say, up to 1 inch. You can see how the C is starting to distort, even on some of these fonts. So if I went down to 1 inch and zoomed in, actually looks like that C is probably, hit the select button here. They have a hand. I don't see one. Yeah, the C doesn't look like it's digitized that well. Actually, neither does the B. Now that I'm looking at this closely, but you know, it could stitch out just fine. You can't really go by the screen all the time. But at any rate, if you wanted to stitch, and I'll just show you real quick, if you wanted to stitch, I'll do caps lock. You come over to this window and you just type in I'm going to do 2 spaces, love you, and then you have to hit set. And there it is. I'll zoom back out, my negative button. And so there it is, I love you. And you look at the size up here. Now this is 7 inches wide and it's 1.5 inches. We don't want that. We could just come in here and put in a 1/2 inch, but I'll grab the arrow and you'll see I can scroll down. Okay, to 1/2 inch. Oops. They have it where it comes into view. No. Oh, I zoomed in too much. I don't use this too much, sorry. Okay, so the right mouse button zooms out. In Embered, it's the plus and negative button. So there it is. If I hit the select button up here and then select it, it's at a 1/2 inch. It's 3 11/16 wide. Now, do they have a lock button? Yeah, they do. So I could, because that's 12/16 is 3 3/4. That's really going to stick out far. I can click this and unlock it and make it shorter. That's 3 1/2. That was my max that I wanted to go. See how that looks. I guess I'll go 3 inches. That's fine. That looks fine. You can come over here to the spacing, word spacing, and this I believe is just letter spacing. And then I'm thinking that you might be able to, yeah. So, whoops, but Control Z. If you hold the control button, you might be able to just, oh. I'm not too familiar with the software. Let me click outside, hold the control, click on, well, no, the control is not moving it. So Control Z, or is not keeping it horizontal, but let's see. Rotate, center, align and distribute. I guess the Y is okay. Oh, it went down to 2 3/4. Let me put it back to 3. So I'm not sure how you hold it, so I can just move the Y and keep it. Did I distort that? I don't think I did. I don't think I did. But at any rate, so that's a vector font, and then you can save it as a working file. If you save it as a working file, that means they're vector file. I wish these companies would use the word vector or stitch file, because that would be very clear to us what we're buying. But their vector format is .be. Ember's vector format is .eof. Hatch is .emb and Wilcom. So you could save this as a vector file, and that way you never have to do it again, and then you can resize it. But generally, not generally, it depends on your needs. I didn't mean that if you save it as a working file, then I didn't mean to say you don't have to worry about resizing it. When you save it as a vector file, you can resize it. You don't have to worry about retyping it in. So you can save this in a folder that says, Embrilliance BE files or Embrilliance vector files, and save it as I love you. In fact, I'll just do that. I'll put it in my WeQuilt Studio. I'll make a new folder. I think I already have an Embrilliance folder. Yeah. So I'll just make a new folder within there and call it the files. And then I'll call it, I'll open that and call it I love you. I don't have to put a .be because it's saving as a .be, and then save it. So then, never have to retype it again. But I forgot to check the stitch tab here to check to see. So this is just going to be a satin fill. None is selected, so the default is just satin. And that's 4 is usually the density on most of your softwares. And it's just the distance between the rows of satin. 4 stands for 0.4 mils distance, I believe. It's every 2 rows in Embered. So, but at any rate, the pull comp, theirs is usually 0.1. Now, I don't know if 0 there means that it's 0 stands for 0.1 or a 1 stands for 0.1. I'm not sure. So I'm not real familiar with Embrilliance. I'll leave that checked since it was. I'll leave the edge run checked. This is all the underlay. Satin, the word satin here means it's a zigzag underlay. Let me take the 3D off and you'll see. Let me zoom in. Okay, so now let me go back to select and select it. Better zoom in some more. Okay. So if I go back to stitch, now you'll see both of these are checked. I must have checked it, I'm not sure. But edge run, it's interesting, they don't have a single run underlay, and it's probably because this is an express program. they either have edge run, meaning there's 2 rows of underlay. You could see there's one there and one there. This center line is usually, it looks to be it's a traveling stitch, because there really is no designated center line underlay. So edge run underlay, this inset 8, as I change it, you'll see how it's inset. That looks to be 8 must stand for 0.8 mils. If I increase that number, now it's 0.9 mils from the edge, I guess. From the edge of the stitching or the edge of the object. I'm not sure how they do theirs. Object meaning the vector outlines of it. Because, you know, pole comp means that it sticks out. Now, if I up this pole comp from 0, you'll see the stitch will come out farther. Notice how it got thicker. So that's why this edge run, this inset, you'd have to get in there with a measuring tool, which I'm not sure if they have one in this free program, and see if they're measuring from the actual vector object or from the actual stitch point. So at any rate, because this font is so small, you don't really want an edge. You don't really want a double line. You only want a single line, but this is all you got. And since it's so small, it's only a 1/2 inch tall, you don't need this satin. When they say satin underlay, they really mean zigzag. You don't need this zigzag. It's going to be too much. So uncheck that, and now the zigzag is gone. So satin means zigzag. And again, this is probably a 1.8 stitch length on there. So that makes it a little confusing, but too bad they don't just have decimals here. But so the edge run, it kind of looks okay to me at 10 here. I think 8 was fine too, but really, I mean, this isn't very wide at all. So you kind of want these 2 lines not to be too close to the edge, because then your needle puncture might run into one of these other needle punctures here, and then you'd have a loop. So even though we don't want a double line in here, I almost say, yeah, make it more like 10. I don't know. Even 11 isn't bad. That makes it that much farther away. Do I have a measuring tool? No, but there is a ruler up here, and I have my select button on. Am I measuring in mils? Inches. Let's go to mils. So this font is a 1/2 inch is about 12 mils. So this is a little over a 1/2 inch tall. 12.5 mils, something like that. So this here is on centimeters. You can see the cm up here. So each one of these little notches is a mil. So if this is, say, 0, just figure. So that's 1, 2, 3 mils wide. Your needle takes up 1 mil. So that's why you want these lines just to be as close as possible. So I'm going to leave that at 11. I mean, it's better than nothing, and it's free. So we'll just go with that. So that's all my parameters, so to speak. So I'll go ahead and I'll save this again. And see, that's the other thing why it is kind of nice if you ever want to use this again to save the working file. Just click save now since I already saved the working file. I love you.be. And now I'll save it as a stitch file. Save stitch file as you know, I probably okay. So the stitch file then, okay, I must have two Embrilliance folders. I am totally apologize. Let's see. I do. I'll just get rid of that other one or merge it. So you, here's the BE files. I should change the name of that. BE and stitch files. Because I kind of want them all in the same spot. So I love you.pes. Okay. So that's saved. So just to give you an idea of the difference between this vector file, which I was able to resize however I wanted, and these other files or these other fonts that I purchased or got free. If I click on this drop down arrow, let me just select nothing and go into font again. And if I click this drop down arrow, these other ones are stitch files, and they're, you know, I bought these from Rivermill, mini script. Oh, too bad you can't make that wider. This is a 1/4 inch. I don't know what this says. 3. I'm not sure. 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. Well, let's just see how big it is. Set. Where is that? You know, what you could do is, whoops. Okay. You could, does this software bring it to center? Center designs in who? So I'll take this one and click center. That way they'll both be in the center. Whoops. Okay. So this one is smaller. If I click on it, it is a little bit smaller. It's a stitch file. It would fit maybe. This Y makes it 14, and that's bigger than a 1/2 inch. That might be too small or too tall. And if you notice, since this is a stitch file, if I grab this and try to make it bigger or smaller, it won't. It just stays this size. So I would be afraid to use this bring it over to my machine, waste all that time. It's not going to fit. I can't go any bigger than a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch. Here, let's go to inches. 9/16. This is a little over a 1/2 inch. 8/16 would be a 1/2 inch. So that must be the smallest one I have, because this is a 1/4. Well, no, this is a 1/4 inch. That's too small. Here's a 1/2 inch. Oh, this is 3/8, because this 3 divided by 9 and no, I don't know. I don't know. She's calling it 3/8, so it's close, rounds to 3/8. The 1/2 inch, if I did that, because of the Y, it's coming up as 3/4 inch tall. So that font doesn't work at all. Here's another block, but I already have a block that's a vector file. Looks just like his. Now these just say, these might have been free fonts that I got. These are BX fonts, extra small. And that one's 9/16. It's a little, I wouldn't want to risk it. These are all Teacher's Pet. Funky. There's got to be a way to maybe pull this off, or whoops. Not sure why it's doing that. I really apologize. I shouldn't be practicing at your expense. I'm not too familiar with this program. So let's go select that again. So I guess you kind of get the idea. Free stack small. Just try one more. I don't see an extra small there. That's all I have. See how big that is. Now that one is small, but it's still at 3/4. So none of these are going to work. You know, I can't resize them. They're stitch files. So I have to just go with theirs. And I'll just show you their website. Here's the font collection. They have 2 of them, 1 and 2. And, you know, they're beautiful. These are vector files that you can resize. They're really nice. But the price, $69 for Font 1 collection. So that's why I was saying, you know, you just kind of want to use their block font, because at least you have underlay in it. Now, if you just can find some BX stitch files that are small enough, that are a 1/2 inch, then that would be great. Now maybe I could have switched and used on that one, I could have used the 1/4 inch for the Y on this one, and then maybe that Y I could have put in to the 1/2 inch, you know, for the rest of the lettering. But, you know, that's just a pain. It's just a hassle. So At any rate, the other option is to buy stitch file fonts and put them in one at a time into your SE600, and that's a pain because you have to line them up and it's a nightmare. I have Embered. Here's Embered. So with Embered, it's really easy. You have to have Font Engine, which is an add-on, but it's not that much money. Like the Embered program is maybe like $130, and then you can get Font Engine, just the basic Font Engine, and use it with the basic Embered, and you'd go to Insert, Font Engine Text, and oh, of course it's going to make us wait now. And you would just type in here, I love you, and it uses all the fonts that are loaded in your computer. So, and then you just set your properties, you set your parameters here. You can have an auto column, no outline. Parameters are normally 4.0. Usually go to 4.5, maybe bring up the pull comp, auto underlay, okay. The height we said, we're in mils, so 13 mils on the height. You can go to the layout, see what it looks like. You can move things around if you want, you know, or you can just move, it'll move everything after it. And the only thing is with the basic Font Engine, it puts a tie off after each letter. Well, so does the one in Embrilliance, I believe. You click OK. You could do a lot of other things. Oh, look, it went right in the center because I have this design centered. So there you have it. Here it is over here. Join them all together. And I could have saved this whole file like this and brought it in and stitched the whole thing out as one. Now the better option is to have Font Engine plus Studio, and Studio gives you more opportunity to create your font and have more control over the tie-ons and tie-offs. So you still do text, Font Engine text. I love you. I'm just going to use the same font. What was it called? I thought it was Benghazi. I might have used it. Benghazi? B-U? Yeah. So there it is there. You can grab this, pull it over. But you have more control over up here on how you want it. Do you want it to have little connection stitches between your letters, even when you dot an I? Or do you want to have a tie on and a tie off between each letter, but have the I's be connected? Or do you want tie-ons and tie-offs everywhere, even in the dot of your I? This is how the basic one is. This is how Embrilliance is. The Embrilliance Express is. And there's just so much more. I always leave mine like this because you want your spacing. I'll just click on characters. You generally, most digitizers have the lettering so close especially when it's this small, so that you have a connection, a little connection stitch between each letter. You don't want a tie on and a tie off. You only want it after a word, and Ember knows that. Everybody knows that, right? So that's why you have more control. It's much prettier this way. So even this Y, I can move a little closer. That might be too close, but. And then you click the check mark, and you know, you could see the little connection point there, and then here's your connections here. Each one of these is a connection. And when you generate it up here, go into 3D, and you can see how perfect everything is. And you can even tell your connections, select connections, all connections, and you can click on parameters and have your maximum stitch length of those connections to be so small that they land a stitch point in between. Now these letters are so close you don't need to do that, but yeah, I don't really want to go any smaller than 1 mil. So I have the letters so close I don't have to worry about this. But let me just show you. If I did, see, I can hold my control key and move this out. Okay, so now the connection, if I go into parameters, let me first just show you. Generate it. Generate that. So you can see, you know, you want to have a stitch point there because then this connection will be literally invisible. So that's when you want to click on your connection and make the maximum length smaller. And there you saw it just made a stitch point. You don't want to go any smaller than 1 mil, like I said. But I had the letters so close that I don't have to worry about it. So I would just Control Z out of it, leave it as it is, and actually the whole word is kind of spaced out. And Control A, and I'll look down here. Now this is 0.44 inches tall by 2.25. I can drag it this way. There it is at 0.5. So I resized it and it's still beautiful because this is a vector format. You're in a vector program just like Adobe Illustrator or Inkscape. So you can resize anything. Then I save this vector file, and Ember's vector format is .eof, and I don't know how to save it. I usually save it as sayings. I usually save them as Embered files if they're EOFs. Sayings. And I have a lot of I love yous. I say that a lot. I love. I have my caps lock on. So you save it as an EOF and then you bring it into your editor software where you turn it into a stitch file. So you design, compile, and put into editor. So you either click design and click here, or you click the button. It does the same thing. And then you bring it into editor. And then all these stitch files come up. So I'd want to save it as a PES for a brother. Click OK. It goes in the same folder conveniently. I love you.pes for brother. And there you have it. I'll turn this one a different color. So, and I'll hide this one by just clicking on it. So there's that one. So those are basically the same font. One was created in Embed Editor Basic, and you can see all the tie-offs after each letter. And this one here was created in Studio, Embed Studio, which is the vector format, and you don't see any of those tie-offs. The only place, let me just put it here and hide those. So on this one, you can see the only place you have a tie-off is at the end of the word. I can't even find the tie-off on the Embed Studio one. I don't know where it is. I could find it, but I don't want to take any more time. And you know, when you zoom in, of course, it becomes more clear how perfect and beautiful it is. Screens only have so much. Embed shows you every imperfection, but you know, so it depends. If you Studio is about $150, so but they have bundles. You can get Embed Editor, which is the basic program here. It's like an editor program. It's like 150. Font Engine, I believe, is maybe 100. Well, Embed Editor is, I think, 130. Font Engine is like 130 or something. And Embed Studio, the digitizing program with the EOF files that we just went into, is like 100 and something. And if you buy all three of those bundled together, I think you could get them for like $350, maybe $380, something like that on Embed's website. So, you know, that's the way I would go, because sky's the limit with Embed. You can even import vector files into Studio and have them auto-digitize, so you could be making stuff in the free Inkscape program and then bring them into Embed Studio, and they're already digitized. You just have to tweak them. And there's a lot of other benefits to Embed. I have, I think, a couple videos on that, but I don't sell Embed, just so you know. I did at one time, but there's really no money in selling it. I just really like it. I think it's a really great program. So, and I do teach it. I do give lessons on it. Not too often, but I do. If anybody wanted one through Skype, you know, and screen share and everything. So anyway, so those are your options with your font. For right now, you know, to have it free, we'll just go with this font here, the blocked font. And I'll delete the one that's selected. I'll click my select button. And so I believe I did save this, but I am going to go ahead and save the stitch file on my USB stick. So I'll have to click the drop down arrow. Oh, I don't have my USB stick in my computer, so let me do that. USB-H. This is just I love you. So I'm going to have to make a new folder. Click on create new folder. Sayings PES. Just so in case I see it in my Windows Explorer, I'll know it's not my other sayings folder. So I love you.pes. So it's on my USB stick and it's 9/16 by 3 inches. You know what? I'm going to have to make it 0.5 half inch. And I'll save it again by save stitch file. So it'll save in the same spot. I just saved it. So I wish there were a way. I know there's got to be a way to group this a little, the spacing. You know, let me see if I clicked on that and held control and it's not selecting them both. Let me see if I can. No. Can you go up here and unlock it? Oh, okay, here we go. Unlock. Not sure. Because I wanted to move this O without it moving on me. You know. And I'm sure there's tutorials on it, but I wonder if I can use my arrow. Oh, okay, I can use my arrow key, but it moved too much. Oh, well. Let's see if I can. That's better. My own worst enemy. Okay. Save stitch file. I should save the working file too. Just click save working file. Oh yeah, because I renamed it. BE and stitch files. BE. Save. Okay. So now we'll take our USB out of our computer since that PES file is on there, and we'll go back to the machine. Before we go to back to the machine, I did want to mention something about when you go to position this on your existing design at the machine. Since we hooped crookedly, and because of that we had to rotate the design and change the center and whatnot, mostly the rotating is what's going to make it more difficult. Since we did that, yes, we can use those positioning tools that I told you really not too helpful. Yes, we can use them, but I'll show you when we get to the screen. You can only use them, say, the bottom left corner here. So you use that button, and then the top right corner, say. But you have to print your template first. Lay your template down and then make sure that your paper template, matches with that bottom most corner and top most right corner. Or vice versa, depending on which way you had to rotate your design. It could be top left and bottom right. So it's too bad they don't have positioning buttons that actually show the position of the actual design once you rotated it, but they don't. Those buttons only show the most bottom-most position. So it would be, if this is the lowest, if this design were rotated, I don't think you can rotate here. In Embridge you can. Let's see. I never work in editor, but free rotate. So I'll just rotate it like -5 degrees. Oh, wrong way. Okay, so in the machine, when you hit that button that shows the left corner, the bottom left corner, it's gonna show you the position, the needle position for this bottom left corner, because that's your lowest horizontal position. But when you go to the bottom right corner, you wish that it would show this bottom position of the actual design, but no, when you go to the right, it still shows this farthest bottom position, but on the right side. So it's going to show your needle right here. And that's not really helpful because we rotated our design. So that's why if you print out your template, paper template, and you go to this position and say, oh, okay, that seems right, and then you go and click the top right position and you say, oh, okay, that seems right, that's my paper template is right there where the needle is. So you have to cut your paper real close right in this corner, and I'll do that in a minute. So that's the only way that I can think of since we rotated it. Now, since we didn't, or if we didn't have to rotate, say we hooped perfectly, which nobody ever does, but say we did, then yeah, you can use the bottom left button and the bottom right just to make sure you're in the correct spot. So, it'd be great if we had an update for a crosshair, an update for a basting box, and an update for this positioning. That's 3 updates that I would love to have, but we can do it this way. We'll just try. So then here in Embrilliance, to print your paper template, you just go to File. You can go to Print Preview or what have you, but I'll just go to Print, or there's an icon here for Print, and that's my printer. But if you went to File, Print Preview, you don't really see a lot, You see this. I guess you could zoom in. There isn't really much there, but you can print right from here. So, so if I click print from here, I'll get that too. And make sure you print it at 100%, of course. So I'll go and print this. I'll be right back. So here we are back at the machine, and I just backed out of the design that was on here, back at the home screen. So now we're going to pull up the I love you saying from the USB here. And take this arrow for the folders. It's under sayings PES folder. There it is, I love you. Set. And you can see it comes through on the screen straight, but of course we know that we hooped crookedly, so we have to adjust this design according to our findings. So we have negative 2.5 in a Y direction, so let's click edit end just like before, and negative 2.5 vertically or Y direction, negative going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so negative 2.5, and positive 3 in a X direction or horizontally, 4, 5, 6, 3.0, and now we have to rotate it 358, so 1, 359, 358. So we're all set. And if we dial down, you can see we're in the center, and we're still going to be in our crosshair. We have nothing to follow for the crosshair, but we know these numbers are correct. So we're good as far as that goes. Now, let's just make sure that our I love you is placed correctly. Now, this particular project is going to be relatively easy because the I love you is just going to go in the center of my design. So since I rotated and everything, we can say to ourselves, oh, it's just in the center of the hoop now. And yes, it is, but it's still good to check. And if it wasn't in the center, say you were going to put your lettering maybe at the bottom or 1/3 down, you kind of have to adjust it and move it by moving the carriage again, like we did here. So if it were going to be down lower, you would do it moving the carriage right from this screen. So let's just say we wanted the design down instead of negative 2.5, we needed it, say we wanted something in this corner, for instance. Well, you would move the carriage, and this is the screen that moves the carriage, the one that says embroidery, even though we're not in embroidery. I wish they had a title up here of what screen we were in. This just takes you to embroidery, but this is the screen you want to be looking at to move the carriage. So let's just say I did want to be down here. I would just move the carriage. And you could see the design is moving. I'll move it back, but I'm just kind of showing you and say, well, ours isn't going to move anymore because it's so long. But if that's where you wanted it, then you would do the rest of the steps down there. You would take your paper template and put it on there and do the next things that I'm going to show you. So let's just go back. I'll just go to center, and I'll just go 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're back at that. Let's make sure our rotate is still at 358. It is. So we're good. So since ours is in the center, we don't have to move it any more than what we just did now. So let's go ahead now and go to this screen here, our positioning screen, and let's use this tool with our paper template. I cut it as close as I could to the letters. As you can see, I tried to leave a little space, you know, because I didn't want to cut off the letters. So we're looking at this point here and this point down there. Because just so you know, when you go to this screen and I press this button, and I don't know if I can zoom in. I really can't. But this arrow is taking me to the bottom most position of this entire bottom horizontal plane, I guess you can call it. And if I put my template on, kind of where I do want it to be, and it's nice because this template, most all templates, they have a crosshair, and my crosshair that was on my design, I can just line up this crosshair, you know, with that one, at least vertically. And then I should tape that so it doesn't move around. I don't really have Scotch tape up here. I just have some masking tape. It's downstairs. I'll just put a little bit on. So that's kind of like where I want it to be. This tape isn't that great either. I forgot this was the low quality tape. The dollar store. But it's good enough. So there's my bottom left corner. And here I am. Let's dial down. And there is the bottom left corner. Here's the needle. There's the bottom of the eye. You can see. I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of, you know, it's off by a smidget, but I probably didn't, you know, have it exactly perfect. But so that's that corner. And then the top right corner is this top of this U. In the top right corner of this U is the topmost corner. So this point here is going to correspond to this. And that's why we have to use opposite corners, because you need a point that corresponds to the design. And this point corresponds to the top of this U. This point down here corresponds to the bottom left of the eye. So let's go to the top right of the U. Good thing they warn you. Okay. So then that looks perfect too. So that's good. That's the topmost corner of the U. So now we know that this design is going to fit within the boundaries. Well, we know because I printed the template, but we know it's straight. We know everything is good. So we'll go ahead and stitch it. So we'll say, okay. We can go back to center. I mean, this is only, dial up. This is only showing us positionally. Oh, I should have taken this off first, but it's such cheap tape, it comes right off. Okay, I'll just put this here. And we'll click OK. And I'm using this orange rust colored thread. I thought it might work better. So we're still okay there. We still are at -2.5 and then +3.0. We're still at 358 there. So let's go to embroidery. Make sure I got my thread the right length. Maybe I'll pull a little more. Put my needle down and we'll press start. Could have gone a little darker on the thread, but it's okay. So you see how it's tying off on each letter, even within a word, but you know, it's free. What are you gonna do? But at least it's got the tie off. I mean, it's got the underlay. You can see, and underlay stitches in satin font is what stops it from puckering. That and the hooping. You need a nice tight hooping, not too tight of course, but a perfect hooping with no bubbles. And this is an aftermarket hoop, by the way. I found that the aftermarket hoops are made of a stronger plastic than the Brother hoop, which is unfortunate. I really wish they'd make their hoops a little stronger so they don't flex and cause the bubbling in the fabric. So that looks pretty darn straight. And remember, when you look on the screen, like this Y might have looked too short, but that's because pull compensation pushes, the way this Y is, it's going to push the threads up and push them up and push them down, whereas with the O, it's going to pull them in because of the stitches, you know, pulling in a totally different direction. The Y is pushing, well, it depends on where it starts. From down here, since it started down here, it's not going to push down here, it's going to push up there. So, just so you know. So that's that. It's all finished. So let's take it out. Oops, let's pull this off. And let's see how straight it is. It's pretty good. It's pretty darn straight. I guess I could have made the spacing smaller and then it wouldn't have, you know, came out too far, but it's okay. I'm happy with it for just trying it for the first time. And I remember when I resized this, I told Ember to make the density 5.0 because I've always noticed when you resize something, if you leave the density at 4.0, a lot of times the new stitches will overlap over each other and it looks so bad, but this one is actually a little loose. So, you know, I should have test sewn it. So now I know I can go back in and make them 4.0 or, but see 4.0 here would work, but here it might make it too dense on the curve. So what I would probably do is just redigitize these curls. And even this, I have that. That's a common outline stitch. So I'd basically be redoing the whole design except for the squares and these lines. But that's okay. I mean, I'm not selling it or anything. I just resized it. So it's pretty good. It's really cute. Now this here, oh, because that was my tie off. You know, generally you don't tie off at the end like that. I should have taken more time and did my tie off in a little, like right there, because that doesn't look as pretty as of a point as it should. And even with the tie-ons, you should start in a little, but I was in a hurry. So I hope this helped you guys. I'm sorry it was so long. I tend to do that because there's so much that I want to tell everybody. And, you know, I don't know. I get carried away. So then, even when I take this out, you'll see, and I have double-sided tape on the back. Oh, look, the tape's coming off. There we go. And I've used this tape many times. It seems to stay. You don't need a lot of stickiness to get this to hoop correctly. So I have double-sided tape all the way around. This is off a little. I have to fix that. But it still works. It hoops great. And there it is. There's no puckering, even without being in the hoop. These basting stitches aren't going to affect, you know, once I take them out, is what I'm saying. Once I take these out, it's not going to pucker either. And I have to trim my jumps. And one thing you do want to be careful, you really don't want to go in and iron this because the stabilizer will shrink more than the fabric, and then you will have puckering. If you do plan on ironing your design after the fact, well, this one has, I wasn't even thinking. I don't remember because I had this stabilizer laying around, and I don't remember if I ever ironed it. I might have. But at any rate, if you do plan on ironing this, iron your stabilizer first before you even hoop it. Get some steam on there, put a Teflon sheet over it or a piece of muslin or something and steam it and iron it. And, you know, make sure you ironed your fabric with steam or what have you. And then you can go ahead and iron it afterwards. But I wouldn't use a real high setting or anything. Just maybe like wool, a wool setting that's a little lower than cotton. So, all right. If you have any questions at all, you can always write me on Facebook. My name is Lisa Wequilt, WEQUILT. Or you can write me at wequiltstudio@gmail.com. And my website is wequiltstudio.com. All right. Thanks for watching.